Welcome, and let me introduce you to the Karakian. It would have been the angry centaur, but it doesn't look angry as much as it looks like a giant behemoth made of engines that someone bolted guns to because they thought it'd be funny. We've mined rocks across the frozen ice seas, done battle with mankind's most malicious mercenary factions, engaged in illicit slave trading and the even darker trading track of designer clothing. And last, we tracked my missing family member through a series of criminal and scientific elements fronted by characters of ill repute. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Karak. I'm from ACG, and today I'm bringing you my review for Rebel Galaxy, a game about spaceships, pirate loot, and channeling Firefly harder than Comic-Con. So as you guys know, I rate games on graphics, sound, music, voice, as well as gameplay and fun factor. If you like the review, please subscribe. Let's do this. This is the review for Rebel Galaxy. Gameplay is up first. At its most basic, Rebel Galaxy is the best parts of Freelancer and Torchlight with some Diablo and, dare I say, some Hellgate London sprinkled and smashed in there to make a game about flying ships, warring factions, randomized items, and worlds seem like an absolutely natural progression. You jump into a ship, one of 21 player-controlled vessels, and you're soon trading, mining, exploring, and uncovering mysteries from within the belly of your fiery space bird. But the complexity hidden within the title is where the gameplay absolutely shines. You know, there's a saying that I think is actually apt here. We did time. That was Patrick Swayze's comment offhand to Keanu Reeves in the movie Point Break, a ridiculously over-the-top movie that speaks of companionship and points towards characters' thoughts on how life is like a prison. And it's absolutely rock solid as an analogy here, as this game does everything it can to free you from chained gameplay experiences and at the same time solidify the relationship between man and vehicle that causes people to wax their cars every Sunday and wives to leave their husbands for their gardeners. The first ship in Rebel Galaxy became a friend as we did time, sheltering me as I ran away from battles too big for my space britches and helping me pay the bills by ferrying me through lightning crackling orc clouds that thrashed the exterior as we tried to get the best price for our ill-gotten space sushi cakes. Though you never see the insides of these ships, you really do become a part of them. My first ship was fairly fast, had a great visual range during battle, but ultimately it was weaker, and despite that, we ended up making good money and explored the first sector almost completely. I was sad to see her go, but I wanted to step up my merchant activities as I had finally found that group, and they expected higher results and returns. The new ship I had purchased felt different. Its view obstructed me during battles, and it was harder to really get a handle on what its specialty was, and God forbid I got too engrossed in mining and strayed near an asteroid. But over many hours I began to see this Leviathan with its back stacked with so many engines it looks like gravity lensing had occurred for what it was. An absolutely rock-solid foundation for me to create my career as a criminal. And man, if this wasn't the first space game in years to make me actually feel like I was one. In all honesty, morality plays terribly in most video games. As a defined specific character trait, it's hard to accurately reflect without becoming too gamey or comedic. Somehow, Rebel Galaxy made me think about what I was doing without actually telling me what I was doing. But let's jump backwards just a bit. You see, you start out in Rebel Galaxy on a quest to find your aunt who's gone missing. It's fairly throwaway, but leads you around various points and teaches you the basics like a good game does. Until a couple missions in, you begin to be reminded that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And it's best to not continue the story until you have better equipment. And that is when the game absolutely opens up. For example, with trading, there aren't just trade lanes, and there aren't just community centers to buy cheap and sell high. No, there is actually real supply and demand here at all times. Relief ships traveling slowly to areas with food shortages, offering you all manner of ways to make cash. Protect them from pirates. Speed out to their destination and sell your own grub to the starving passengers. Attack them and sell their own items to the same starving people. Or instead, maybe go out and wait and see if their deliveries drop the cost of various items due to oversupply. And that's one aspect of many within the game. Various hidden and known factions battle for control in dynamic and ultra chaotic firefights that can result in a good trade route being closed off because someone's given birth to about 200 mines all around the space station. Mines that have a magnetic attraction to your face and do almost insane damage. Speaking of mines, but the less deadly type, mining is an excellent money-making enterprise, but even the biggest ships don't get unrealistically large cargo holds. Oh, and that's if the NPCs aren't immolating minefields around you, taking the goods for themselves, resulting in very realistic mining rushes where NPCs and you rush to local fields in a tomb tombstone-like danger dash for cash. In fact, one of the best situations occurred to me where I finally got so fed up with the other miners and their swarms of ships that I blasted them to smithereens and stole their supplies. But I made the mistake of flying to the wrong base, and sadly those bastards remembered me, and that did not end pretty. There is a reinforcement throughout every game system of risk versus reward, but even more so of remembered slights. Unlike Freelancer, enemies are smart, and they won't chase you into territories that they don't control, or at least not for too long. Instead, they will be happy as clams to just bring you out of warp and mess with you until they run off, slowing down your money-making enterprises, which then results in you having to decide to either do some missions for them in your own way of apologizing, or opening up full-scale war style on their asses and indulging in an ever-growing battle that can see entire sectors of space as either dangerous to even think of traveling to, or little tiny nirvanas of safety. Within a short time, you have made very real impact on what's occurring around you and how each sector you're traveling within feels, and yet the game never once says this is going to happen. And there are many sectors, some much harder than others. The game is absolutely vast, to the point that seeing it all is both a bit daunting and almost a personal challenge. Now, of course, none of this would actually be that fun if it wasn't backed up by absolutely great gameplay, awesome ship systems, and so forth. It has an excellent variety of items, weapons, shields, and engines you can equip on any of the different ships, many with their own little idiosyncrasies and trade-offs. And both the equipment and the galaxies are randomly generated, which means an incredible amount of variation and dynamic gameplay regardless of the time you've spent. Control of the vessels is also spot on, using a combination of mouse weapon control and AI weapon control to remind you that none of these vessels is manned by a single person, but instead hundreds and possibly thousands. Want some wingmen? Go. Great. Hire some mercenaries who follow you around and engage in very intelligent gameplay throughout their stay with you. Battle is handled in a World War II battleship style, without the ability to plane positive or negative from the 2D representation of space. It is really all about broadsides and flanking with weapon hits. I highly doubt the developers plan for the morality play to exude so heavily and impact gamers like myself, and it feels more like it's an interplay of systems running both in the foreground and background that, sort of like scripting for AI, appear to be doing something highly intelligent but are really just deciding pathing. Regardless, it feels a certain way, to me at least. Strip that down, and the game itself is still vastly entertaining and has had me returning for more with increasingly high frequency. Graphics are up next. I really do have to say the game throws special effects, shaders, and various non-human ability to see camera elements at you without hesitation. Space is indeed supposed to be empty, but a game like this wouldn't work. So the developers and their team of talented individuals working with them have put together systems that absolutely buzz with activity, but in realistic ways, with AI that plays out according to its own principles and desires and demands. And instead of feeling antiquated and fairly wooden like the AI in Freelancer, instead Rebel Galaxy, its busy traffic areas feel like real-time events and sublime space freeways. Designs for the ship run smack dab into Battletech, hard-edged designs that remind you of blueprint drawings, and ships with appearances ranging from space sledgehammers to armored turtle shells. Their designs are both artistically interesting without feeling chaotic, and they also combine to give the universe a really incredibly cohesive feel. The game also runs very well and gets 60 frames per second and above, even at 1440p in the midst of a battle between 3 capital ships and an extraordinary number of pissy wingmates. Graphically, I would say this thing is pretty stellar for what it's trying to do. Sound, music, and voice.
Engines at maximum. Weapon overheating. Emergency cooldown yellow.
And sound is up first. In space, no one can hear you scream. In fact, for the most part, no one can hear anything. But as with most space games, here we have explosions ripping through ship hulls and spilling contents out with the thunderous approval of continued laser fire. Ramming other ships and items in the universe results in a cacophony of dynamic sounds that make every impact really interesting for the ears. Weapons of all kinds not only have their own sounds and dynamic range, but feel right, with the spool up of the mining laser telling you that when that thing fires, it's gonna sound awesome. And it is. Excellent sound design, though I am not a fan at all of the HUD's high, trebly plink sound every time I highlight something. It's like a damn plinko machine. Music. Overall, I would say it was pretty good with some ambient bits here and there, but luckily the developers have allowed for custom music, and not with any fancy diddling from inside the game controls, but the absolutely awesome ability to set entire folders on your computer to be ambient music, combat music, interaction music, and so forth, allowing for you to completely customize your experience. Want the final countdown from Europe to play while engaging the enemy in battle? Fine, do it. I love the in-game music, but now I know my own is better. Kudos for such a customizable, custom soundtrack feature. Voice. Yeah, this is hit and miss, with some characters in the game really adding to the atmosphere, especially most of the aliens, while the humans seem mostly there to deliver their lines and move on. Additionally, the voice file samples are not the best, resulting in some fairly above the rest of the sound sphere voice acting, making it feel a little bit more artificial and amateur than it is. That being said, the aliens and the robotic creatures are excellent, with alien languages that sound real, to the point of occasionally picking up English non-translatable words like whiskey. Very, very cool. Fun factor. You know, currently I'm having a blast. The mixture of dynamic gameplay and fairly tight control, as well as each ship feeling so different from one another, is allowing me to create my own stories that are going to stick with me long after I've moved on from this game or from a location that I'm playing in. It's not perfect, however. The game's menus for trade have some work that could be done to facilitate a bit better handling of trade, but the UI is robust, and with one button I can not only issue commands but scan the local area or check missions. I can also see all of my reputations with various groups, and it's that kind of ease that makes the gameplay absolutely sing. One thing I have to say though is if you're just into firing your weapons and just into killing bad guys and just into trying to make as much money as you can, the game is still for you. So I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never talk about it again rating scale. This will be less than $20, and the plain and simple fact is I feel that it's absolutely worth it. Whether you're impacted by the morality of the decisions you end up facing, or you notice the different AI routines that are going on and the overall busyness of the systems and how they feel, in the end, the game still has absolutely excellent core values, and regardless of all of the stuff that I felt while playing it, in the end, that is what matters, and that is your base, and it's well worth the purchase. So anyway, if you like the review, maybe subscribe, whatever. Give us a thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you didn't, and peace out.
Collision warning. Accelerating to sublight.